Sergeant of Central. 19 Sergeant, check.
He's walking eastbound.
It's important for officers to realize that surveillance is a very important investigative tool for many different types of police investigations. It's not just strictly drug related. You're going to get times where you're going to get information from an informant that there's drug dealing going on at a certain location. You're going to have to go by, set up on that location, and verify the fact that there is drug dealing going on. Undercover officers are going to be out there doing undercover work. If something goes bad and they need our help, we got to be able to get in very close. It's also important that when you have a CI or an undercover cop making a drug buy somewhere, to have a surveillance team set up in the location where the buy is occurring. It makes a much stronger case when you get into court and you have a surveillance team that has submitted a supplemental report that are going to detail facts of the buy. It's going to corroborate what a CI or an undercover cop is going to be testifying. Sometimes when you set up, if you get the right situation, you can even be close enough on a surveillance team to be able to see the hand-to-hand exchange, especially if you have binoculars and you get the right location. It's going to make a much stronger case when you get into court to testify. So again, surveillance is a very important tool that can be utilized in many different types of investigations. We're going to talk in this next training segment about the fundamentals of conducting good surveillance, the use of props, foot surveillance, documenting what's going on during that surveillance, having the right equipment. Those are all important points that you want to consider when you are conducting surveillance. Pre-planning in any type of police operation is essential, especially when you're conducting surveillance. You always want to make sure that you sit everybody down, you discuss the objectives of your surveillance. Everybody should have a packet of all the information that's known on your target, a photograph of your surveillance target. You should definitely have a list of all vehicles that your target may use. I can't tell you how many days I've wasted on this job going out there and sitting on somebody's car only to find out later on that they were out there doing deals in their girlfriend's car or their roommate's car. No matter how many times you do things, every time is a new time, and you should definitely sit down and have a good game plan. Go over, discuss what you know about your target, where does he normally go, what his girlfriend's address is, and again, any other type of vehicles that might be used by this target. You should always have good equipment such as binoculars, extra clothing, a blanket if you're doing surveillance in an area where it's cold out. You can't leave the car running because the exhaust will give you away and give up your position. You should always have somebody assigned to take a log of all incidents that take place during a surveillance. What might seem like just a benign incident early on in a case might turn out to be something extremely important as your information progresses. I was on a surveillance once where we were following this guy, and he used to go into the cleaners a couple times a week. And every time he went in there, he'd carry an armful of clothes, and a short while later, he'd come out with a rack of hangers. As our case information developed, we found out that cleaners was one of his dope drops. So he was going in there under the guise of doing a legitimate activity, only to find out later that it was just a ruse to cover up his drug dealing operation. It's also important to realize that people are a lot more surveillance conscious today than they've ever been. So police officers need to be successful in using props, utilizing different things to fool the bad guys so they don't realize that we are the police. Any item can be a prop. I knew a police officer once who used a baby stroller. She would pull that collapsible baby stroller out of the trunk of her car, throw a blanket over it, and wheel down the street like she was walking her baby. With Mr. Mom popular today, guys could even use a stroller as a prop. Props are almost any item that you can use to effectively fool the bad guys, to give them a reason to think that you're not the police. Would a cop be sitting there hitting on a beer bottle? Would a cop be sitting there with a dope pipe, a clipboard, and a measuring tape? Simple little tools that anybody could keep in their car. So you could have an orange cone put it behind your surveillance vehicle. Flip on your four-way flashers. I knew a cop who one time acted as a homeless guy to watch a drug operation. He made himself a homemade sign, begging for change, walked around, milled around in the neighborhood, carrying this homeless sign, asking for change, asking for money, and nobody gave him a second look. They just figured he's another guy from the neighborhood. So a simple prop could be a cardboard sign. A simple and effective prop that everybody has today is a cell phone. People are a little less alarmed when they feel that you're not paying much attention to them. If you seem distracted and talking on a cell phone, sometimes the simplest props are the most effective. For example, you want to check out a location to see if somebody's living there. Going up there with an empty pizza box, just checking a bank of mailboxes to see if the name is on the mailboxes gives you cover for what you're really trying to do, and that's identify somebody that might be living in an apartment building. One of the props that I used quite a bit in my career was I'd bring my dog with me. Bringing your family dog was a great way to fool people. I would throw my dog in the car, drive around with my dog in the passenger seat. Nobody ever suspected that I was the police. Even if you don't have a dog, bring a dog leash. A dog leash allows you to get up close, looking for a lost dog. Getting on people's property, calling out your name of a dog can get you up close and personal. You might be doing a search warrant at a location, and prior to doing that search warrant, you want to get up and take a look at what the property looks like. Having a dog leash can get you up close. They're never going to suspect the police are walking around looking for a lost dog, holding a dog leash in your hand. I put myself in the mindset of the bad guys. What is the bad guy's perspective on what they're observing? Are they seeing some cop sitting there staring at them, watching? Or are they seeing somebody that's doing a normal activity? Is somebody walking around on a cell phone? Is somebody walking down the street with a set of headphones and maybe a bag with some groceries in it? We always got to be viewing things from the perspective of what the bad guys are thinking and what they're seeing. You judge your behavior by, if you were a bad guy, what would you be thinking? Could this guy be a cop? Or is he just some guy doing a legit everyday activity? Good cops are going to utilize what's already available out there for cover to really hide what your true purpose is, being out in the neighborhood. Go up and start talking to a work crew. Work crews that are working in the area are a great way to shield what you're doing. One of my partners brought a collapsible lounge chair with him. He went out, sat in a parkway, buttered himself up with some suntan lotion, sat out there like he was catching some sun, reading the newspaper. Totally fooled the bad guys. Sometimes you got to mix things up. Sometimes you're going to be tailing a guy in a vehicle and all of a sudden he's going to pull over and get out. So you got to adjust and get out on foot too. So one of the best ways of following people is from the opposite side of the street, staying a little bit behind the guy. You create a little bit of distance between you and the person. When we are conducting foot surveillance, there's going to be times when somebody's going to go into a building, and most cops would be very uncomfortable following somebody into a building, being in real close proximity to them. Sometimes you're face to face, shoulder to shoulder with people, but if you handle yourself right, you can fool people. For example, if a guy gets on the elevator, let the bad guy get on the elevator, follow him in, wait till he pushes his floor, and then you push the next stop. Once that person you're following gets off the elevator, get off at the next stop, run down the stairs, and you might be able to spot where that guy's going. When you are conducting surveillance, a lot of times you think you've been burned or made, but most of the time you aren't. It's a creepy feeling. Always try to not make eye contact with the person you're tailing. Always act like you're distracted or doing something else. Always stay back. Simple point to remember is if you could see the subject easily, they can see you. And a lot of cops don't think of that when they're conducting surveillance. They set up way too close. And in reality, you could do a very successful surveillance from farther back. Most cops, one of the biggest mistakes that I've seen is they get too darn close. So stay back. And if you think you're burned, there's always another day. So don't be afraid to break off your surveillance. Don't be afraid to pick it up another day. If you stay focused, if you pay attention, if you think about these things that we talked about, you're going to be a lot more effective when you do follow the bad guys.
19 Sergeant and Central. 19 Sergeant, okay.